Hey, how's it going, everybody? All right, so I'm going to go over Eusebius' Ecclesiastical History, Book 2, Chapter 24. So I have this book here. Alrighty. So very short. That's all it's here. All right, chapter 24, right here. Nero was now in the 8th year of his reign with Ananias, so that was from AD 61 to AD 62, succeeded the apostle and evangelist Mark in the administration of the church at Alexandria. But first of all, he was not an apostle. Mark was not an apostle. He's an evangelist, but not an apostle. Alexander is referring to Alexander, Egypt. He was a man distinguished for his piety and admirable in every respect. So here's a link on Mark, which brings you to here. If you just click on it, you have access to this interactive PDF in the description below, by the way. So when you click on this here, I thought this was this had been pretty accurate. So he was the one that wrote the Gospel, Mark, and he was the founder of Christianity in Egypt, Alexandria. Alrighty, and according to some sources, and I wish I could see those sources, St. Peter preached in Babylon. This is the Babylon that I believe that Peter is referring to, Babylon, Egypt. It all points to that. But at the same time, St. Mark was in Alexandria. However, he focused on the Jews of Babylon, which makes sense because Galatians 2:7, Peter was an apostle to the Jews, a city near Memphis, Cairo now. So if we go to the map, okay, Memphis and Cairo, Egypt, okay, and this is the fortress of Babylon. This is where Peter would have been. He's a fisherman, he had a boat, he had a water canal, and there are plenty of water canals all over. So, even a lot of smaller ones. So as you can see, there's an abundance of water canals that bring your funnels right to Babylon, where Peter would have been, the Apostle Peter. And this is Alexandria over here, where Mark would have been. So it's only 110 miles away. Roughly 110 miles. Yeah, 110 miles. So by boat, no problem going back and forth. Whether or not that was his biological son, probably not. But if you read that article, it goes over some of the history. And so I say this is pretty believable. If you have more information, I would love your thoughts on Mark. Peter mentioned in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 13. Alrighty. So, So he titled the apostle. That's false. That in the world of hearsay, false information. He was definitely not an apostle. So if you click on here, what's the term apostle? It's right here. It was an apostle. And if you read this is a good article. All right. It has to be somebody chosen by Jesus. All right. They were the foundation of the church. All right. And then in the apostles link, if you click on that, it'll bring up that image that I keep bringing up. These were the 12 apostles of the tribe of Israel. These were apostles of the Jews, or of the circumcision. Paul was the only one apostle of the Gentiles. Unfortunately, the large majority of Christians today, believers, treat Peter and John as apostles of the Gentiles. And all because, like, for example, Acts 10 and Acts 15, Peter mentioned Gentiles, or he deals in Acts 15 mentioned Gentiles, and Acts 10 preached gospel to the Gentile household. That did not make them apostles of Gentiles. All right. I've gone over this over and over again. Acts 10 was simply the first day the apostle went to a Gentile household. The gospel went out to the Gentile household. And that was the first day the promise made to Abraham that be a father of many nations took place. And it took off from there. We have to understand that the new covenant had been made firm first with the Jewish people who knew their history, the Old Testament history. And that took place for 3.5 years. The last 3.5 years, Daniel's 70th week, which is from AD 26 or AD 26 to AD 30. Sometimes it's on my timeline. So yeah, so let's see here. I brought this one up because it's very believable about Mark being killed in AD 66. The gathering took place in AD 66. So he's been killed murdered a couple years after that. I believe that Mark would have been part of the logistics to their gathering. You have all these water channels come in. At that time, you had the Roman Navy and the Roman Army just attacking, this is in AD 66, attacking Jerusalem per the orders of Nero. Vespasian was the one carrying it out. His son later on in AD 70 took over, and then within 5 months it demolished. He just poured it on. He completely surrounded Jerusalem, surrounded the temple, which is what Jesus had told them. You see surrounded by army, know it's near. I know it's been said that it was surrounded earlier, but I do not believe to the extent that nobody could go in and out. And the one in AD 70 was the real deal. Nobody could go in and out. And so that was the one where in AD 70 where they fled. And Josephus just caught them just in time fleeing. That was the day Jesus told them, flee to the mountains. And he just caught that in time. So it's fun putting this all together. So anyway, so Mark would have been here. And so the stick of Joseph, the Jews, Christian who'd been scattered, they would have arrived aimed towards Mark. Now, First Peter, very first verse, writing to 5 churches in the Asia Minor, now called Asia Minor, referred to them as scattered. That would have told them right away it's time for the gathering. You have to keep in mind, you cannot just announce it like trumpets or spell it out, because they had to leave very quietly so that the persecutors would not follow them. And so then 5 chapters later, he mentions Mark, I greet you, and this is where Mark would have been. So this makes sense that this is where they would have aimed their boat to arrive to funnel down to where Peter would have been. They would not have wanted to go along here, aim towards here, because that's where the Roman army was and the navy. So it makes sense to go over here. And then later on, then Peter would have escorted them to Petra, right here, which Petra has a history of flooding. That's very important, per Revelation 12. And then we see the earth split here, right here, per Revelation 12. It already happened. So their gathering already took place. Alrighty. If you want Babylon to be Rome, well, the logistics would have been a nightmare. Good luck with that. He doesn't specify. Mark was not even there. It doesn't specify where. All right. Rome is not considered a safe place. As a matter of fact, it's the opposite, the most dangerous place in the world at the time. So why be a code for the most dangerous place in the world at the time? That is just suicide. He had been responsible for murdering them. If they went off to Rome, getting murdered by Nero during their persecution of Christians. We do not see an earth split area where there's a history of flooding. It just doesn't fit at all. There's just so many problems with this. It's just the accepted narrative of them going off to Rome. It just does not fit. So anyway, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover. Yeah, I think I had mentioned, something about, let's go back to the 3.5 years. So the 3.5 years gospel went to the Jews. This is what made the covenant firm. All right, you had to have the Jewish people coming to Christ to make that new covenant firm first. Daniel 9 talked about make a firm covenant. That's right here. He makes a covenant with many, and that's almost per verbatim what Jesus said in was it Matthew 26 or whatever. Somewhere where Jesus sits down, he makes the covenant with many. It's almost verbatim of Daniel 9:27. He makes the covenant with many. Yeah, anyway, I can't find the exact verse, but yeah, if you look at actually it's Matthew 26, I believe. In Matthew 26 is where Jesus sits down, makes the covenant with many. Actually, let's click on this. The end of 9:20, he makes a firm covenant. So it made firm during those 3.5 years with many for a week. So that was for 7 years, from 80:26 to 80:33. So those first 3.5 years, he preparing the Jewish people for that new covenant, his ministry. And then the following 3.5 years, they come into the new covenant and makes it firm. So let's see here. Yeah, right here. Report out for many for the forgiveness of sins. Right, it's almost verbatim. And so right in the middle of that week, Jesus makes that covenant. And then following 3.5 years, the last 3.5 years, the end of the 7th week, they come in, making it firm. And then the Gentiles start pouring in. All right, and that started the first day that happened was in Acts chapter 10, which according to my calendar, that took place on September 17th. That was the last day of Daniel's 70th week. September 17th at 80:33. Oops, that should be 80:33. And then the next day, which Acts chapter 10 occurred, would have been when Acts chapter 10 occurred. Alrighty. So, and that's based on the Yom Teruah of that year, the time times a half a time that we learned from that occurs in 73 during that period. Centralized around the 4th anniversary of Christ's Passover in 70, and the time a half time went out both sides from there. And that was the length period of their gathering. Alrighty. So, anyway, I think that covers everything. Yeah, like I said, not much here. I referred to him an apostle. He was not an apostle. This is based on hearsay right here. You have to be careful what you hear. Check it against scriptures. So much of what you hear is false. Ooh, it's flooded with false information and disinformation. It's why it's no surprise when a person first becomes a new Christian, they tend to go by what the majority has to say. Well, the majority has to say about things must be correct. And turned out, the more you study, the more you realize, oh, no, actually the majority go around saying is false. And you really have to do your own homework, which is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. God is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. This is singular, right down to each individual doing their homework. And so, and that's what this channel is for, YouTube channel is for, those who desire to do their homework. And that's partly why I don't have too many subscribers. And speaking of that, I never asked for subscribe or anything on my channel. The reason being because it's this channel really for those who have a strong desire for the truth. And it's not about subscribing to my channel. Hopefully that you find my information helpful along your journey of studying. But very few get as far as the level of teaching in this channel. Very few make it. I used to be a futurist myself, so I used to be in that big, broad category, but I'm not anymore. So anyway, so that's that, and thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.